right, looks like we're starting. I definitely didn't forget anything. Nice. That's always pleasant. Hi everyone, I'm Airier, and today we're going to be starting the next episode of Star Wars Warhammer 40k, episode 41, Mortal Precipice, part 3, which people in the chat have been telling me a lot of things about that I'm trying not to look at because they would be spoilers and I would like to avoid them every now and again. So yeah, we're just going to jump right into it. Fan is in the chat, and he definitely isn't here to laugh at anything that's about to happen. Unlike me saying something so completely out of context that it makes him laugh uproariously for reasons I'm too afraid to ask about. Yeah. So, before anything else, I'm going to do the obvious answer and drink tea. Oh shit, that's actually really good. Banana tea. I never thought it would be that good. But with enough cinnamon, it's so good. Yeah, I'm geeking out over tea right now. I do that. Also, I probably should have put less in there because it's very full. But it's very tasty. All right, let's begin. And I'm not just stalling because people have freaked me out about how important this video is. And it's like, okay, how much are we going to get freaked out on here? And Fan is in the chat laughing. Well, I knew that was going to happen. Yeah. Oh, before I forget, contractual obligation needs to be fulfilled. If you like this video, there's a like and subscribe button down below. Hit the like and subscribe button. Thanks. Okay, now that I've done that, and unlike all the recommendations people keep sending, and by people, I mean random bots from YouTube because they say, hey, you should say this more. Yeah, they're annoying. More importantly, let's get started. What type of music is this anyways? I want to say it's like funk rock, but I don't think that's correct.
Samael was
We're just jumping right into it.
He ducked his head to the right, saber sliding through the...
Okay, I'm going to be completely honest here. I thought Fan would pull a Fan and jump to something completely unrelated with Ayla or, I don't know, some random clone we haven't met to start a completely new plot thread on this one, because that seems to be what he does. So we're just going right into the action from the last part. Well, shit.
The air where he had been, a bar of blinding light, making his dark eyes useless for a couple of seconds.
Lightsaber to the face.
His tongue trailed his upper lip, tasting sweat, stimuli he did not want or need right then, registering it all the same. Eyes blinking, still blinded by the purple blade, he was forced to predict, anticipate, veering left and slamming down with his gun-bearing hand. He caught something, a forearm in the midst of a powerful punch, unnaturally strong,
Probably
bringing it down from his neck,
I don't think
where it
Obi-Wan would do
nearly
that.
crushed his throat. Instead, it struck the plates where his ribs had once been so long ago, fracturing them, throwing him back as he moved with the force of the blow.
Wait. Plates where his ribs were once. Either he's had surgery or he is actually a space marine, because one of the changes they make are turning their ribs into fully ablative, I think interlocking so they can still move, rib cage, or, well, a rib wall.
Completely fracked. He was completely fracked.
But he's so much weaker than a
But
space
it
marine.
wasn't the first time.
Space marine out of armor, though.
Voltanis, the craft world, that horrific week in the dark arenas, and that one time with the Orc Commando. Samael had been fracked before. Now he just needed to unfrack.
Fan, please tell me you've written your own fan fiction just for previous events from Samael's past about going undercover as an Orc Commando's lackey, or fighting against them in an arena, or going onto a craft. What the hell, man?
Himself, and fast. He rolled as he hit the ground, coming up to his feet, eyes blinking rapidly, trying desperately to rid himself of the after images of those lightsabers, and relying on his ears this time instead.
Oh.
He called up the taint, that power within him that was at once divine and hated.
Psyker.
The inheritance of the Emperor and of mankind. He used it to help him sense, combining it with his hearing to slide to the left and raise his blade into the air. Clash! Burning sparks raining over his face as two sabers, one blue, one amethyst, slammed down against the pale white of his Solex Aegis energy blade. He kicked, using the moment to attempt an offensive, trying to drive at least one of them into defense.
But
it didn't fracking work. A leg meeting his with the same force, shins painfully colliding, though from whom he could not tell. But he knew who palmed him in the gut, throwing him even further, feeling the internal bleeding begin before staunching
Doesn't seem like
automatically.
something
His
Obi-Wan would
eyes
do.
were clear now, clear enough to see the two Jedi advancing on him ruthlessly. That was good. He needed his eyes to make these shots. His hand rattled, but he did not budge his aim, firing at them both. Mace Windu ducked the shot, a specter of violence and death, that one. The other, Obi-Wan, Samael guessed from his appearance, chose to block with his saber instead, grunting as molten lead spattered his nice robes.
Oh.
3 shots left.
So this is actually a physical bolt thrower, not just some random laser weapon. So it's not a las gun, unless it's a las gun in the sense that that's kind of a catch-all term that every author seems to take a completely different tack on. Probably just a regular slug thrower, though.
Last one being the most important. The last one being the one he needed to get off perfectly.
What was it for,
Mace
though?
came
Explosive?
in, not waiting for his companion to recover, and for a few heartbeats, it was just them in a pure contest. And Samael was reminded again. Reminded that he was completely fracking fracked. The man fought like an Eldari warlock using a power sword, but with none of the pomp or arrogance.
That is probably the biggest compliment I could possibly imagine. Fighting like an Eldari doesn't sound that great, but if you take out the pomp and arrogance, that is actually really awesome, because Eldari are squishy, but they're so freaking fast that they count as being nearly unkillable by anyone who's not really overpowered for what they are. Essentially, I'm looking at tabletop terms, killing one Eldari is never worth it for the shots you have to put into them. It's really not. Unless you just randomly happen to take an entire army of Hellblasters, because sure, that's apparently a thing you could do at one time. I have no idea if that's good now, but for the longest time when I was playing, that was the equivalent of saying why at the game and then doing it anyways.
Clearly having been chastened in this battle into pure seriousness. His blade came down like a thunderhammer's head, Samael struggling to not buckle under it as he caught the lightsaber on his own blade of radiant light. Every intercept a heart-skipping moment, the not quite Astartes knowing full well that his sword had a sorry habit of moment, the not quite Astartes knowing full well that his sword had.
Okay, that is confirmation of what I got from the plates instead of Rib's comment. Not quite Astartes. Now, here's my question. Is it because he was a washed-out Space Marine scout? Well, maybe washed out is the best point. A scouted Space Marine scout, which would be ironically its own point, and I would make way too many jokes about. Or is this him or someone he worked for prior who decided to get a little handsy with certain, what are probably state secrets of various chapters? This is 40k. I could see this going either way, and frankly, the one that involves espionage and betraying your own allies is more likely to me. I don't know if that's the way fans going to play it, but
had a sorry habit of flickering at inopportune moments. It held strong this time, reflecting the blade, creating more sparks as the Jedi punched him with the equivalent of a power fist. Damned Jedi was a sight more lethal than anything before him, and Samael grunted as the fist drove into his gut again, shooting him back for a third time.
But he's standing up, right?
Scraping the hard, dusty ground of the inner wall.
This is such a weird comparison, because we saw the Space Marine fight earlier, and we saw Mace Windu needing help. And now we're seeing a fight where Mace Windu seems to be in the same role as the Librarian prior to that. So, as crazy as this sounds, this is very much someone with a stealth rogue build fighting a flat-out, well, fighter. Not a good matchup. And yeah, I'm using D&D terms because I just saw Puff and Forest video right before this, so it's in my mind.
His stomach was fracked. He'd be taking sustenance in through a needle for at least a few days after this.
Unless you get back to
he even lived through this at all.
Again,
but
back to man.
There was no mercy from the Jedi. Not that he expected any. Not at this point. Samael stumbled and curled into a ball, using the warp's mind-issued propulsion to roll back a couple more feet before springing wide open and firing out a wave of invisible force, trying to telekinetically drive them back.
Slightly aware of it.
The other master had joined General Windu once more, and Samael fired again as they both braced against the wave of his power. But they seemed ready for it, halting but not budging.
Because they're now used to fighting a Space Marine Librarian, so they're probably looking at that
out of the air right before Obi-Wan's face. Throne, damn it, the assailed agent thought to himself. They really weren't giving him any openings. But
This is the one. My thoughts are kind of conflicted right now. On the one hand, I love that we're getting this from Samael's perspective because he puts on a cool front regardless. So seeing from his perspective and hearing that I'm fracked is really engaging on a human level with him, because having that moment of panic is definitely showing he's not Astartes, because they would never think that. But near Astartes means he has a lot of the advantages. So way more human. And frankly, what more characters I think at 40K would need to be, giving a human perspective for stories outside of the big narrative battles. That's interesting because it's still superhuman, but it still maintains a lot more of the humanity. But on the other hand, I would love to hear Mace Windu and Obi-Wan's internal thoughts on this, because I would love to see them thinking, oh shit, it's an Imperial. Oh shit, it's an assassin. Oh shit, it's another Psyker. Because their previous reference would be way more armed, trained, probably centuries of it, more training. I have no idea how old this guy is, and that really doesn't mean much for the Imperium. It's just easier for an Astartes to live longer if they don't die. That's the hard part, probably. Dude, I would love to see them freaking out, realizing he's not as strong. And then whenever he pulls some bullshit out, I was like, oh shit, we should have expected that.
Samael reckoned he was closer to the broken down exit way than he had been before, which was good. Damn good. Because there was no way in frack he was going to survive this without some help. And that was where his last shot came in. Just one more to spend before it was in the chamber. Surrender! We will take you alive. You will be treated fairly. The one called Obi-Wan said.
Ooh. Am I the only one who heard this line and their first thought was to imagine Mace Windu thinking the words, the fuck he will? Because, yeah, I really don't think he'd survive.
Alerting Samael to just how pathetic he must look before them. The warrior grinned, some blood sliding from his lips, coagulating fast even before the stream could reach his chin. Samael spat the hardened red out from his mouth, both masters grimacing at the sight. This really was a different galaxy altogether.
Yep.
These warriors were strong, but still so soft. That is kind of you. Samael.
I mean, admittedly, the way he's describing them is very much per the Sith manipulating everything into a position where there's militaristic leaders who are in a position to be shot easily. Again, Palpatine's screwing around with people. Or if Fan is going off technically it's been Darth Bane the entire time with various skin suits. Or the skin suits wearing the memories of Darth Bane. I don't really know how they've been working it out in canon. And I'm not sure they know either at this point. So, yeah. But he's looking at the Jedi as the equivalent of their enemy fucking with them for centuries, if not millennia. So, yeah.
Grunted, attempting to stand up straight, agony bleeding from his chest and stomach. But that is not an option for a man in my position. Throwing
Steal
damage.
it back to man, it helps.
You can punch hard now, can't you?
Yep.
It's like being on the wrong end of a power fist. Samael said,
What's the moment where he
slowly
punches?
backing away, weaving his blade,
Dude.
threatening in the gap between them. This is your last chance. If you do not surrender now, I will end you, said General Mace Windu, and Samael nodded. You do what you have to do. I will as well. Truly, I did not wish to fight you, General Windu.
Yeah,
My
these
battle
hurt.
isn't with your republic, strictly speaking.
Wait, what?
General Windu. My battle isn't with your republic, strictly speaking.
Oh. So he's not working for the overall aims, or specifically the aims that the Imperial Yeah, technically Imperial Remnant is accurate. It just sounds weird because that's a faction later in Star Wars canon. Sure, whatever. The small 40K faction here, he's not so much aligned with them as he has his own aims that he's still following, which would probably be clearing out the Gene Stealers. Oh. I wasn't entirely sure what his goal was, because Inquisitor is going undercover, sure. And if he's not lying, which is also entirely possible that he is, he's giving away a lot right now about how he has a greater mission he's still following. Would it be as simple as just getting rid of the Gene Stealers, or would there be more to it, though? Or would Fan have changed his mind later on, for all I know? I have no idea on that one. Although he seems to plot these out really well, so maybe that's not the case.
But it is out of the question for me to surrender. Completely impossible, in fact, he said, taking another step back. Windu jerked, starting to move forward, but Obi-Wan held him back, grasping the shoulder of his robe with his free hand. Wait, what do you mean by that? Explain yourself. Are you not an Imperial? Are you not a Space Marine? He asked, and Sam...
Oh, so he picked up on that too. I mean, I got internal dialogue to give me that clue. So Fan is playing Obi-Wan way more observant. Nice.
Now felt his grin grow wider, tombstone teeth on full display. Almost, Master Kenobi, but not quite. I am a hunter, and that woman you saved, she was my prey. If you just let me end her, then we wouldn't even need to fight. Samael explained. Enough.
The irony being, while there's no way it would go any differently because Mace Windu's there. If he actually had to sit down with Obi-Wan, I could actually see him maybe not convincing him of killing her, but them parting on at least admirable terms of, I don't want to fight you right away, and we're not going to benefit from this. Again, Windu's there. It's not going to happen, but I could see Obi-Wan at least hearing him out before disagreeing.
Said Mace, glaring with an intensity that was impressive even by Samael's standards.
Oh, impressive.
As if we would allow you to slaughter a helpless girl. He finished, and Samael laughed. Throne be damned. You have no idea whatsoever.
Nope.
No idea at all.
Honestly, this would be the great time to just accidentally drop a data chip, which they may or may not be able to understand as a data chip.
If you think that thing was helpless, she'll destroy us all. Imperium, Republic, and the entire galaxy around us.
Actually, unironically, if they could find a way to drag the Tyranids into this galaxy chasing her down, would that actually become a good option for the 40K galaxy? I mean, if they could find a way to send them over here, it's a great way to just say, hey, they're not our problem anymore. I don't think Fan would take it that way, but it's kind of surprised no one's brought that up. Like, if we could find a way back, what if we can throw our enemies here and get rid of them? We don't care about the people here, so fuck it. Prison galaxy.
Said Samael.
The Australia option.
I said enough. I won't believe another word you speak. You are a liar, an infiltrator, and I've heard enough.
Technically, he's not wrong.
Said the dark-skinned master of the Jedi. Samael nodded, aiming his gun towards him, his saber out and tightly gripped. Fair enough, General. Fair enough. He said, legs bending, crouching, preparing to absorb the force that would soon be on him. And then, it was. The two Jedi becoming blurs of movement. Samael had some strength in the warp, but nothing like these two. Remembering some of the training his brother had deemed to teach him, he grit his blood-crusted teeth and...
Oh. Now, what does he mean by that? And no, I'm taking a little aside right now because I'm really curious what the implication of that little sentence is. And I know if I just watch more, I probably get the answer. But frankly, the joy of reading for me is always the theories you can put up about what is being implied and what isn't yet, to try and see what kind of mystery you can parse out with novels. Is that the normal way to read? Honestly, I don't care because it's the way I've always done it. I absolutely find it fascinating to do this. I find half the time when I'm reading, it's actually me just holding a page and not actually looking at it while thinking about what may or may not be implied. I'm just doing it out loud right now. So the thing I think of here is he's either talking about a brother in the Space Marine sense, so he was a scout that gave him some training and maybe he was cast off, or we're talking actual brother who was probably into some shit he should not be into. But there's so much more that this could still be.
Drew in that power, becoming a stationary blur as he did. Just before the clash. The Jedi shot forward and he fired back. His final shot before the last being entirely avoided by the two, his blade-bearing hand moving in a frenzy to parry both of the blades of light which sought him. Sparks again, the screaming of energy meeting energy, and both Jedi need him in the guts, moving in a practiced synchronicity.
Yeah, he's going to need all the
another
backs after
excuse
this.
to move back, but this time they did not relent. Blades swung back and up and back again, and it was all he could do to keep pace. his enhanced senses and vague, warp-bolstered awareness saving him again and again as he backtracked from them, slashing and slamming his Solex against their lightsabers. He was driven out of the passageway and into the greater battle beyond, death and war waging all around him.
But also really easy to disappear into.
The sun's light blackened to nearly nothing by the clouds and columns of smoke which dominated the sky wherever Republic ships did not. He was forced again and again to prioritize parries and blocks, chemical sweat flying off him as he vibrated with power. Teeth grit tightly together as veins became to prioritize parries and blocks, chemical sweat flying off.
And that is a very odd choice of words. My normal assumption would be that's just you giving a really weird description of it, which is entirely possible. Instead of just saying sweat, I like liquid sweat, powdered sweat, dried sweat. It's chemical sweat. But considering we're talking about a pseudo-space marine, and you're not usually loose with how you use verbiage, and the few times you are, I hype on it because I can never tell if it's intentional or not. I'm wondering if maybe that's an indication that something he has going on biologically is in the sweat, and that's why he wasn't a big fan of it early on. Really curious. And I know I'll get the answer, maybe get the answer later. Either way, though, I really want to find out more. But it's such an interesting little thing to see what might be going on.
Him as he vibrated with power. Teeth grit tightly together as veins became visible on and around the sides of his head. He couldn't hold this technique for very long. The unnatural warping he was wrapping himself in, seeking to shake and tear him apart almost as doggedly as the Jedi it was defending him from. He swept his white Solex up and around, catching their sabers, driving them up as he spun.
He's describing a battle meditation, isn't he? He's describing a 40K version of a battle meditation to be able to respond like this. But because he's approaching it from a way that requires domination when he's not a Sith, so he's essentially doing it in a safer but also more dangerous way. At least that's what it sounds like. It could be completely wrong.
Extending his gun-bearing fist out to backhand Mace Windu, catching the man hard in the face and forcing him back before Master Kenobi returned the favor with an acrobatic twist, kicking Samael across the jaw almost.
Okay, I just want to take a moment to highlight that the most acrobatics are Obi-Wan right now, because this is something that actually amazed me in canon, how up until his rematch with Maul, Obi-Wan, even in later episodes of various TV shows he was in, was still the acrobat in how he fought and how he moved around. And it wasn't until Maul where he made that determinate switch from acrobatic stance to very hard, very solid, very minimalistic fighting styles, which you saw in Return of the Jedi. No, sorry, not Return of the Jedi, New Hope. So just having that little detail of the acrobatic moves is just that little bit of geek out for me to show that fan is showing how Obi-Wan fights at this time period. I just like that. It doesn't mean anything especially here. It's a nice little call to, yeah, this is how he moves. He's the one who does this. It just makes sense. It's those little details in fiction that I really appreciate because they just give that little bit of characterization to a character. If fan could cut it out, it wouldn't matter. But if he keeps it in, it shows just a little bit more of how Obi-Wan is working right now, which would be very different than if he suddenly described him as a very staid, solid fighter. If he had that description, I'd be like, whoa, okay, that changed. And the big port here is because he has these little details, if he makes a change in how he describes it suddenly, it stands out. So it gives credence to anything that really is differently described has meaning, as opposed to what a lot of writers do is words are filler. They don't actually mean anything. I could pick 1,000 different ones. They're just here to make the sentence longer. It's the small little gripe I have that I absolutely fixate on because it annoys the shit out of me. So when I see moments like this, where it's just that small little extra bit that fits with the characterization, I like it. It's just good. I like it.
Dazing him as lights bloomed in his eyes. Samael gave a serious thought to surrendering then. The battle was going badly.
He actually
and
would?
Not just for himself. He recovered thanks to muscle memory, backing up as he slapped away the blue blade which followed him, able to see the carnage intensifying all around him. They would be overrun in minutes at this rate.
Admittedly, surrendering to Obi-Wan would probably be a way to move the story forward in a positive way. I don't think surrendering to Mace right now would have that same effect. Yeah. And also because fans seem to already be doing that plot line with Farnus being surrendered to Ahsoka.
He'd surrendered before,
Considering the robot
always
doing
with the
it as
intention of
being
fighting
surrendered.
himself free again, but a false surrender was as viable a tactic as any in his mind. However, he would not demean himself such, not until he had made his last shot, and now that he was out in the open, he could. Wait! Samael bellowed, and to his mild surprise, they did. Backing off for a moment as he slouched, coughed more blood, half of it solid, half of it not.
Because blood, for starters, coagulates faster, yeah. So he
Change
has
your
that upgrade
mind?
too.
Asked Master Obi-Wan, but Samael shook his
Tempting.
head, aiming his gun first at him and then into the air, straight over his own head.
Calling him help.
He groaned, firing his last shot skyward and tossing his pistol away, grasping his blade with both hands now. The final shot was not like the others, rocketing up and glowing a pulsating red, revealing itself to be some kind of technical flare.
Oh?
I just wanted to let you know, Samael said, grinning through red
I'm assuming it's
teeth,
a notification for
that
Heck.
you now have 60 seconds to finish this fight. He explained.
Why?
Or what? Asked Master Windu. Wait 60 more seconds and find out.
Actually, speaking of a timeline, how far into the blow the planet up plan from Wyler are we? Because it hasn't been mentioned in quite a while that he started that process. The asshole was evacuated. Somehow that was the choice he made. And then the ships abandoned them. Was Wyler already on the ships when that happened? Or does he have his own way off? And how far into it are they? Because discovering that time limit might be important right now. No, wait. Wyler is still on the planet because we haven't resolved the Alea plotline yet. So there's a good chance he might not have even started the timer.
Said Samael, grunting a moment later as both Jedi rushed him again. His flare was out. Heck was coming.
Called it.
But could he last that much time?
What exactly
He
does
figured
she
having
do?
both hands on his
Well, we're
sword
about
would
to find
help,
out.
though his blurred form began to come back into focus, his stamina unable to retain that power for much longer. Another screeching clash, Obi-Wan driving in almost like a fencer, while Mace Windu savaged him with wide, powerful strikes, one hand always free and waiting for an opening. Samael met them with more strength than finesse, catching their lightsabers and reversing their momentums with raw power. Hissing as he jerked his head to the
Does he
right,
have the
his
strength to
face
keep that up?
narrowly swerving to the side of another
Probably.
warp-wreathed fist which cut a furrow under his left eye and over his cheek. He wondered, truly, if they would actually manage to kill him before help could arrive. Though even if he could not hold out, even if they did kill him, that would not stop what was now about to happen. Hecate's third face was turned.
Hecate? What does she mean? What does he mean, third face?
What was now about to happen. Hecate's third face was turned, and she was coming. And Throne helped them all if Samael was not able to turn that face again when all was said and done.
I'm wondering if she might also be a demon host then. But Hecate is referring to magic, which I thought was still something that used that term for the Eldari. And he did technically spend time with them. I don't know. I have to find out more information. Of course, he would choose this moment to jump to this asshole. Really, fan? I know you need more villainous Imperial side because they're accidentally becoming the good guys despite literally committing genocide frequently in story. And you drop this guy. I don't... Deadly battle? Ooh, like that beat.
Shadrick ducked his head, spitting in anger as a bright lance of heat tore through his tall hat, forcing the man to throw it off as it caught fire.
Damn.
Traitors! He yelled, spinning and firing his own last pistol back the way the shot had come. All around him, his loyal soldiers were forming up to create a wall between the Commissar captain and the ambushing force of Cadians and Calambians who had sprung out from the adjoining walls.
Oh, so they did actually find him in time. Oh. I thought this would be randomly him on a ship being smug that he got away. Nice. He's probably going to get away because that seems to be the way the fan is treating him, but...
To assail him. Many minutes ago, shortly after exiting the armory, the Commissar captain had been confronted by 12 men. 12 Vastillan irregulars who had demanded he halt his progress. They had even implied that he was under arrest by order of Saint Lazarus.
Yep.
The Commissar captain had only laughed bitterly at their pronouncements, snapping his fingers and silently sending the signal for his men to gun them down. It had been such an easy thing for him, his forces far outnumbering the foolhardy 12 who had chosen to intervene in his duty. Now, he was starting to truly realize they had only been one squad of a quickly converging force. And the next time he met with these men, they had not stopped for a chat or exposed themselves in the folly of good faith. His own guards fought like Kriegers, for they knew they were dead one way or another.
Why?
They fought
because
under
they went with
no
him.
false pretenses, not that Shadrick would need one. His stormtroopers were mimetically branded to loyalty, already accepting that their lives would be composed of no families, no friends, no descendants. Only duty and dedication to that duty. And thanks to his contacts in the Inquisition, that duty was entirely to him. They were just...
I'm assuming the contact is a certain specific, definitely not Chaos Psyker. Might be others, might be related to him for all I know, but... Also, Durgan, you're asking how much I know about Warframe? I used to play it a ton. I sucked at the story and I never really bothered, but I just loved running in missions and killing shit. It's also why I never knew what I was actually doing to progress the story, because I ignored that and just ran into missions and killed shit. Yeah, I made it really hard to progress when I needed to actually pay attention. I think I got up to the second dream, though.
Just as willing to die, staving off these interlopers and traitors, as they were to die peacefully in the exterminatus that was to come. Of course, Shadrick would not join them. The long, beeping teleporter beacon he wore slung over his left shoulder
Still in range.
would assure
so it's a private
that.
ship then.
And that was as it should be.
Unless this is much earlier
After
in the
all,
timeline.
Shadrick was not some replaceable foot soldier.
Yes, I think the foot soldier would be way more useful.
He was a commander, a leader born to bring victory to the Imperium. Those were his thoughts as he watched his people falling like scythed wheat, dying to buy him time at a great cost. In fact, the cost was obviously steeper for his own soldiers than it was for those attacking him, throwing their lives away too cheaply in his opinion. But he could not. Throwing their lives away too cheaply in his opinion.
Yeah, that is exactly what I heard. Shadrick saying that their lives had slightly more value. I don't think he's being nice there. It's just the idea that a commissar in any way, shape, or form would say that throwing a life away is cheap or too cheap. That's weird considering the entire ethos of the 40k universe is outside of Krieg, everyone is expendable. And Krieg are explicitly expendable, but they expend themselves even faster than normal. So, yeah, I mean, he did say like Kriegers beforehand, so it makes sense. But still, that is such a weird turn of phrase to hear from a commissar. It does make it stand out that he's really a piece of shit. Just in a way I wasn't expecting.
But he could not argue with the effects. Few of the enemy fell, but they were all held back by their sacrifice. And with that, he was satisfied. He and those who remained to escort him ran up the tall, vaulted passageways of the inner sanctum of the basilica. Tech adepts kneeling ahead where they had rushed to, using powerful Mechanicus data interrogators to hack their way past the barring gates and other defenses.
Oh, they are working.
Red painted across brilliant gold more and more as the other guardsmen drilled up towards him. The commissar firing over the head.
Wait. Has the basilica been gold colored the entire time? I don't know why. For some reason, I was thinking more concrete color. You know, it is a basilica for the God Emperor. I guess just random gold everywhere would make sense. Unless that was just a different reference altogether.
Heads of those men who comprised the last bulwark, keeping the enemy from their leader. Don't let them through! He barked at their backs.
Yeah, because I might face
Force
consequences
them
then.
back, even if it means your own death. The Emperor demands only that you die well. He continued to say
I don't think
as
the Emperor has anything to
wide,
do with you.
embossed gates leading into the final chamber began to creak and swing open. Still firing, he entered the room while walking backwards, hair scorched and smoking, burns glowing across the carapace he wore under his now ruined red uniform. He spun around to face the tech adepts once he was inside. Shut these doors! Do it now! He started to
pulling a
order
gun on him.
before his eyes grew wide, seeing what awaited him.
What?
The room was enormous and circular, built around a gargantuan altar composed of gold, adamantium, and priceless auramite filigree.
Oh.
The pillars were caked in depictions of sword-bearing angels, many
Please don't tell me he's going to steal some of the expensive shit on his way out.
wearing the recognizable armors of the Adeptus Astartes. Themselves being depicted fighting and dying, stabbing downward with their weapons into the faces of silver daemons and their own heretical cousins. Above the battling angels, depictions of the sisters themselves stood, eyes upturned towards idols of the saints of their order. Mouths open in frozen song, hands raised above their heads or held to their chests in prayer. And the saints, each one, some men but mostly women, held aloft blazing swords, depictions of priceless relics belonging to ancient times, the weapons aimed up and inwards towards one final towering depiction. A statue so enormous, it must have filled the entire central spire of the basilica itself.
Oh.
Gem eyes looked up towards it,
Also, just a random shout out to Kubik right now because holy shit, man. I thought this was a painting at first. You did good on this one. This one is really intense in the animation you pulled together, or not even animation, the image. This is, damn, it's really good.
appealing to it for blessings, golden lips vowing silent praise to its glory. There, atop it all and in the center, sat the Emperor, supreme and mighty upon his golden throne. Eyes of auramite staring down in pitiless judgment. The master of mankind sat with both hands resting on the pommel of his long, down-facing sword, itself alone larger than any of the other statues, save the Emperor himself. The great weapon pierced far, far down, passing the saints and angels, its tip visible in the open center of the altar. And there,
What is
hanging
there?
from the sharpened end of their god's instrument of death, was the true weapon, the bulbous, enormous shape of a virus bomb.
I thought they were going to be using the planet-destroying weapon that the Separatist has, but no. No, they're going with the fuck it, we're using it option. And of course, the Imperium has it here.
It contained within it thousands of pounds of pure, dormant death.
Also, fun thing I did learn about these things. Virus bombs aren't biological. They're inherently nanites built in the Dark Ages technology. Or, well, a lot of them were. I'm sure there's things called virus bombs that are actually magic viruses as well, or psychic viruses. But a lot of them were essentially Grey Tide. So, yeah, that's a thing. Ah, wrong button.
Ready to be unleashed when his final judgment was called upon. Ready to grant the Emperor's mercy to an entire world. Beneath
Is he
the
hitting the timer?
Exterminatus-level weapon was no coffin or central dais, but rather a vast, yawning pit that the sisters had drilled down all the way to the lowest levels of the planet-sized city that they could reach, ensuring the weapon's absolute effectiveness upon being dropped and detonated.
Would that make it more or less effective? I don't know nearly enough about the spread of these things, except they are self-contained intelligent weapons, so... And fan lost internet? Oh, shit. Oh, no. I lost internet. No, I still have internet. That is weird. Huh. Well, that's odd. Or no, Fan lost internet. Oh, okay. That sucks. I hope he gets it back. Also, I'm just going to quickly make one change because apparently it's recording in a really weird position right now. Yoink. Haha. Okay, that should work. And is that long enough for Fan to be back? And he's back. Nice. I wasn't just waiting to see if he would come in. That would be weird.
But it was not the majesty of the altar's size that stunned the Commissar into silence, nor was it the lethal, ancient form of the world-ending bomb which hung at its center.
That seems to be
Not even the depiction of the Emperor was enough to give Shadrick such pause.
Wait, what else was up here?
It was the small army of soldiers who surrounded it, and their many, many aimed weapons that held him in place.
Okay, I'll fully admit I was not expecting them to actually do that. Yeah. They thought ahead and put guards on the, hey, we should probably guard this button. Nice. Unfortunately, I'm wondering if the next thing they're about to do is lower their arms because they're also working for a certain Inquisitor.
On one side, the helmed heads and camo-painted faces of the Cadian Guard.
Cadians?
Kneeling behind cover, aiming long-last guns from high alcoves they had climbed into, and grimacing from the shadows of demonic statues, ready to fire in a moment's notice.
That they haven't yet.
On the other side, an equal force of undauntable Krieg corpsmen, arrayed in rank and file, one line kneeling, one line standing, all men aiming their high-powered las rifles in one single direction, his. And between them was their obvious commander, standing before the altar with a retinue of his own people composed mostly of Cadians and a single one-armed Krieger.
Okay, it's Lazarus.
It's over, Commissar, said
Okay.
the dark-skinned man,
He's worried about that.
amethyst eyes staring Shadrick down. Lay down your weapons and submit to arrest by order of Saint Lazarus.
How are they going to get that
Ordered
virus bomb to
Captain
drop?
Stern. The Commissar's remaining troops were dwarfed by the assembled mass of soldiers, but they
See, right now, Fan has put the Chekhov's gun on the table. He has put the virus bomb above the pit, hanging from the cord. My only question right now is, do any of these characters survive into the next phase of the story? I don't know. I really don't know. I would like to believe they do. I think Farnus survives because he's with Ahsoka, and I don't think Fan would kill off Ahsoka like that without way more introduction to everything going on with that. But for everyone right here, I don't know. I really don't. I also don't know how fast a virus bomb spreads, so I can't say that either. But something is going to happen to knock that thing out, and either to steal it away for later or to drop it and use it now.
They still did not lower their weapons or flinch away, though they did hold their fire, waiting for their leader's command. Shadrick felt lines being drawn across his face, like gouges of hatred
The moment where
carving
all
into
the red
his
dots are on your
cheeks and
forehead? Yeah.
Your Saint Lazarus is nothing more than a sergeant! He has no authority over me! The Commissar spat.
Technically, he has the exact same authority as the God Emperor. It's the, I told you to do it, so you listened authority, which functionally is way more important. Because when there's no one else to say otherwise, you listen to the person everyone else is listening to.
To little effect. Be that as it may, you were also ordered to vacate the Basilica by the Holy Lady Ordain herself. And yet, you are still here. If for no other reason, I must insist because of that. Stern said back, voice calm, his own weapon lowered, while the Commissar held his out in a nearly trembling fist.
That is a face.
You may have been correct before, but I am now working under a higher authority than that of the Canoness. Shadrick said, grinding his...
That is a very interesting thing Fan had him say, because he could be both right and wrong on this. Right, because technically an Inquisitor says something, so it happens. Wrong, because there are still political ramifications to talk about. And Fan is playing it into that way because he mentioned before how those were various concepts with the various branches of, I can tell you to do something and you will listen, but also it might be a mistake. It's, yeah, malicious compliance is a bitch. And you can't kill enough people to make it all stop when the entire Administratum would technically be your enemy. Admittedly, it probably would improve the 40k side, but that's completely irrelevant. So, yes, but also functionally, I could see a lot more people ignoring a random Inquisitor and saying they just went rogue rather than say that an actual saint needed to be killed. Whether the High Lords would agree or not would really come down to which would cause less trouble.
His teeth as he tried to recover his composure.
Also, I'm glad we get an accurate picture of what Shadrick looks like.
Stern asked
Might be a little
with
too
a
pretty, though.
raised eyebrow. The Emperor's Holy Inquisition! The cornered Commissar barked. The declaration sent ripples through the Cadians, though their masked counterparts showed no reaction at all.
Saints
I am
with
here
direct
under
access.
direct orders of the Emperor's word, and I have been instructed to initiate the final salvation of this place.
Oh, so
and
he was the bomb
proclaim
going off.
Exterminatus before this basilica falls to the enemy. He continued, "You expect me to believe the Inquisition would order that while reinforcements are on the way?"
I mean, when you put it that way, yes, actually, that makes a lot of sense.
While the fight still rages outside,
Yeah.
undecided,
Yeah,
Stern-voiced in
kind of makes
open
more sense when you say it
disgust.
out loud.
Open your eyes, Captain Stern. This planet is lost. There are no reinforcements coming, and while the battle is still waged, the enemy is all but assured victory. Shadrick contested.
It's not wrong.
But we can turn that victory to ashes in their throats, he declared, seeming to address not only Stern, but every single one of the soldiers within the chamber. And turn us into ashes as well.
Or less than
You
ash.
do not have the authority to initiate final salvation. Lay down your arms and surrender. Stern ordered, his face tightening. I may not, the Commissar said. But the Inquisition does, and as I have said, I am here under their orders. We must all bow before the word of the Emperor, even if it means our...
The crazy part is saying you bow before the word of the Emperor doesn't really matter much when the Saint of the Emperor, who has proven to have a direct hotline to Big G, that kind of does trump you in this case. Word of the Inquisition? Sure, you actually are in the right on this one. Word of the God Emperor, the saint who is literally channeling the God Emperor, probably can beat you on that one. The irony being that the Inquisition told me to do this is perfectly in line with what they probably expect the Inquisition to act like. Whether they do or do not is a debate of how mimetic you want to get. The funny side is, yeah, they definitely would. The realistic side is, they did actually ban Cryptman for destroying too many planets, for admittedly what he thought was a good reason, but it has only become a bad reason as the Tyranids have been engulfed to become a bigger faction than they initially were, because they realized what they were describing was not actually that scary.
Our deaths, he announced. But not your death, correct?
Yeah.
Stern shot back,
I mean, there's no way that teleporter actually works like he thinks it does. I fully expect Shadrick to die somehow. That, I don't doubt. Hell, if anything, if Wyler kept him alive, I'd be really surprised. That would seem weird to me.
Frustration tainting his expression. That device you have on your shoulder is a teleportation beacon. Do you deny it?
To where?
He asked, and to that, Shadrick had nothing to say. Why would the Inquisition choose to rescue you from this, in place of, let's say, the Canoness herself?
I mean, the answer there is obvious. I mean, well, maybe it's obvious because I have context to know that there's power games going on. And Lazarus was only slightly aware of these power games because they were affecting him prior to this. They don't have anyone really high level here. The captain is probably the highest normal ranked one prior to that. So yeah, I guess it would make more sense not to initially assume power bullshit is going on.
Or one of the majors, or even Saint Lazarus. What makes you so special?
He's willing to do it.
The captain challenged. The canoness is an old, dying woman. She is no good to anyone and would likely not even survive the trip, shouted Shadrach, voice
I mean, at this point, that
echoing in
might
the
be accurate,
truly
but not when you've got that
cavernous
information.
room. The other mages are dead, captured or trapped outside the basilica. They could not be reached anyway. And Saint Lazarus. Why would the Inquisition salvage a worthless Calambian sergeant who could not even effectively lead a countercharge against the enemy lines without massive casualties? It should be obvious why I was chosen, and even
Because you're the dumbass who believes they'll survive and willingly carry out your own unassumed suicide. Yeah, we're aware.
if it is not, it is their choice, their word, their judgment, which concerns me, not yours. The scuffed Commissar proclaimed. There was a silence then, soldiers shifting in their places, gloves tightening and squeaking around handles.
I'm hoping someone just
and
shoots him for
closing
the hell
around
of it.
triggers, but not yet firing. Stern rubbed his chin and then nodded. Perhaps you are right, Commissar, he said at length. But you'll forgive me, he added before Shadrach could so much as
If we don't
sigh.
believe you.
If I do not take you at your murderous
Nice.
word, if the Inquisition sanctioned this, then I will need some proof. So why don't we all just relax for a time and get in contact with them? I'm sure
And the best part is there's no way Weiler would pick up if that actually happened.
they will verify your orders, and if they do, then so be it, said Stern. Shadrach gnashed his teeth, a vein of raw fury visible on his face. He would not be stopped, not be stalled, not by some upstart sergeant or a meager Cadian captain. He looked around the room again, and slowly a spiteful grin spread across his face
What's he
as a
pointing out his
stark
ass?
realization struck him. Yes, we could do that, said Shadrach.
Or
But I think I have an even better idea.
does he have a remote
I'll give you
destination?
one more chance, Captain Stern. Get out of my way. Make no further attempts to stop me. That is a direct order. Stern crossed his arms, fixing Shadrach with a deep-seated glare.
What did Shadrach see to make him suddenly so confident? That's probably not good, whatever it was, because he was on the back foot until he noticed something.
I do not take orders from you, Shadrach, the man said, cracking his neck with a turn of his head. So, no, he stated with an air of deep finality. Shadrach's grin flared deep before he coughed, clearing his throat and raising his voice. I am Commissar Captain Jonathan Shadrach.
Oh.
Captain Stern has
I don't know why, but for some reason the idea that commissars had ranks just kind of surprises me. I don't know why. I mean, it makes sense. They wouldn't all just be the same level. Just for some reason, I always assumed that commissar was just the standalone rank, and that was just it. Huh. I guess if there's captain commissars, there'd be sergeant commissars.
has overreached his authority and is defying a direct order from his superior. He is in violation of the Imperial Creed
Who's he talking
and
to?
the Adeptus Munitorum Code of Conduct and Honor.
Automated
As
system?
such, as of this moment, I am initiating General Order 99. Any who remain loyal to your organization must abide it and detain former Captain Stern
Only detain?
and his accomplices to await summary judgment. Stern could only blink in surprise as the order was issued, his reaction aped by most of the Cadian forces,
How many Kriegers were there?
some of whom even chuckled at the very notion, and none of whom moved to comply with the ineffectual order.
1313?
But the men of Krieg were not laughing. As one, they turned, guns swinging away from the Commissar, and aimed straight up and into the Cadian forces they
Will 1313 go along with it? Or is he able to because he's down his shooting hand?
flanked. Stern balked, particularly when he felt the barrel of a hot-shot pistol press into the back of his head. Please surrender, Captain, said the cool, even voice of 1313.
Yeah, had too many
I am
arms.
not permitted to give you a second warning, the young soldier warned. The Cadians spun to face the Kriegers, and 1313 found his own head, the focus of a long lass, aimed directly into his ear, held by a scowling, trembling Emiliana. Though he did not turn to look at her, he knew she was not shaking in fear, but in raw rage, born of bewildered betrayal.
And the irony of Kriegers being used as traitors, because that's exactly how their entire plot started. Someone didn't want to do horrible shit, so they committed treason, and then they nuked everything to fuck it over. And now it's the exact reverse of someone wants to commit treason, so they're going to fuck it over. Although technically Shadrick is technically right, an Inquisitor did it. It's just an Inquisitor the others might very want to unalive.
13, what are you doing?
Following his programming.
She hissed angrily, following orders. He said in a flat voice, "His orders? Why?" She insisted,
He technically
and 1313
is
gave
higher up.
her the suggestion of a shrug in response, his eyes locked forward. Because, like the captain already said, the Commissar outranks him, and the Inquisition outranks us all. There is no other choice. He explained as though it should have been obvious.
And the worst part is, in terms of 40k logic, he's in the right. I'm referencing a specific moment where the Custodes gave a Primaris chapter orders to unalive themselves, and they didn't, so they did it for them. Yeah. It's you listen or die, and if it's actually helpful, we'll find out later.
And besides, Emiliana, he continued, still not turning to look at her, still holding his gun to the back of Stern's head. I am of Krieg, and where I come from, we follow orders. We always follow orders.
Minus the ones to not kill yourself in stupid ways, because that one they kind of break all the time. Oh, wow. It seems like no one wants to see the next episode today. No one is saying anything in the chat about it. Wow. I'm kind of shocked. I just see a lot of comments about pen and paper. Oh. Maybe I should write down what we're going to do next week. I'm just waiting for the chat to catch up so I can see all the people going, "What the fuck, Airier?" And yeah, I'm looking forward to that. Normally, it's where I say, like, you guys know my price. 10 more memberships won't do it. Except, that's actually already been paid a few weeks ago, so we're going to honor it now and do it anyways. Next episode. I'm trying to skip ahead because Fan has a lot of music in the beginning, and while I love it, if it doesn't have the words over top of it and it's just the music, it does seem to get claimed pretty often, and since it's a live stream, I don't want to deal with that. Just waiting for... Oh yeah, chat has caught up. Sorry, I'm enjoying just watching people freak out way too much. This is funny to me. There's just a good 30 or so seconds here. Aw, there's less freak out than I thought. Damn. Well, still, it hasn't been prepaid. I need to actually honor that. I'm not that much of a monster. Although I do have a distinct understanding that there's not nearly enough people subscribed to a fan with too much time. Go fix that. Like here, right here. This number, it should have a couple more zeros on it. Get on that. Mortal Precipice Part 4. Is this the last one? No, next one is Mortal Fall. Ooh. And Durgan says, I don't need to sleep before the season. Need more Star Wars.
Believe what she was seeing,
Ayla.
though her master, Quinlan Voss, only grunted in recognition when she paused before the unnatural sight.
Thank you all the same.
He had been here before, had been pulled from this place she now witnessed to be tortured above. So he understood better than most the shock she and the other 8 Jedi around her were going through at the moment. Nearly 400 Jedi Knights lingered here, pinned to the walls by manacles and chains. Their torsos wrapped, their bodies constrained with an excess of unnatural steel. Many simply hung limply from the restraints, others wiggled and grunted, gagged by the cords of metal, heads and eyes wrapped as densely as the rest of their bodies. But, as unsettling as their style of binding was, it was the bindings themselves which were the most disturbing of all.
What were they bound by?
The thorny, spiked chains were not originally a part of this place. This long series of storage chambers they were now pinned into. They had somehow been crafted out of the walls themselves.
Wait. Crafted out the walls. I'd almost seen that was like a Bone Singer thing, but what did 40K could do that? Other than a demon playing with reality. Yeah. Oh, hey, Durgan, thank you very much, man. Also, like, all joking aside, guys, I like getting memberships because it does actually help a ton, but seriously, just go sub to Fan. The guy does great work.
The steel of the building having been twisted and melted, drawn out, and then reforged into these cruel chains. Blood dripped from the struggling Jedi, and as Ayla approached the nearest one, she realized, to her horror, that the bindings themselves had no locks or openings, each length a complete, unbroken line of twisted links and thorns.
So you need to cut it with a lightsaber, if it can be cut.
She had a key of her own. Activating her lightsaber,
hey!
She turned to face the others. Spread out.
It is technically
Begin
a key.
Releasing them as quickly as you can. She ordered, and the 8 knights who had come with her obeyed, her recovering master limping to her side and helping her take the weight of the first captive she began to cut free, cleaving the chains with her blue blade. How was this done? Ayla asked as she severed
Psychic
the
power?
Jedi before her from the wall, Quinlan catching the man and staggering somewhat as he lowered him to the ground. Some kind of technology or... She began to say,
magic,
but
space
her
magic.
master shook his now bald, roughly shaven head. It was a demon. He
Or the
breathed
demon
out,
fucked with reality. Yeah,
voice
that works
tense,
too.
but low, as if fearing to be overheard. A demon? Ayla asked, moving to the
He knows
next
what it
knight
is,
as
too.
Voss leaned the Jedi he had been supporting against the wall.
Or he thinks it's a demon, and while functionally at this point doesn't matter, demon host, which is still slightly different and somehow less terrible than the actual. Oh boy.
Letting him recover. Some kind of monster. The thing that was torturing me had full control of it somehow. He could order it, command it, and the monster itself, stars, Ayla, have never seen or felt anything like it. I barely even survived it. He explained,
what the Sith want to
grunting as
become,
another
probably.
of his comrades fell into his arms. Ayla kept moving, but was clearly troubled as she continued her liberating efforts. How many of these monsters were there? She asked after a small time had passed, and Voss grimaced. Just one, Ayla. It defeated and scattered virtually all of us alone. There was nothing we could do against it. He rasped,
I mean, it's
the
an
memory
unsealed demon
clutching
host.
him tightly. How is that even possible? You had over 2,000 Jedi Knights with you. She almost yelled, a
Yep. Yeah. Oh, lovely. Well, we wanted to figure out just how powerful this thing is, and 2,000 Jedi lose to it. Admittedly, we saw close to these numbers being defeated by a Space Marine Librarian. And by close to, I mean, yeah. Probably not close. I don't actually know the numbers. I thought it was closer to maybe 50 to 100 that the Librarian took down, but I could be off.
fever pitch of fear rising in her, the shadows of memories she had cleaved beginning to cloud her inner serenity. Again, her master shook his head. Not this time. After we broke up their command center and captured or killed their leaders, we decided to divide up our forces. 5 groups, roughly evenly split. We left our tired and less experienced knights behind to guard and escort our prisoners. 3 of the remaining groups chose other Imperial bases to assault, joining up with the Axumite rebels we found on the way, gathering them up, leading them. He explained. My group, however, we decided to hunt down the fleeing Imperial forces that still had some cohesion. We didn't want them to rally somewhere, so we pursued. It was all working out.
So it wasn't the entire group then. Okay. So it wasn't all 2,000 either. That does make it a little better. I thought if it was the demon could handle 2,000 Jedi flat out. That's... How many did he say? I want to make sure I heard that right.
However, we decided to hunt down the fleeing Imperial forces that still had some cohesion.
Yeah.
We didn't want them to rally somewhere, so we pursued. It was all
Technically happened
working out
regardless.
just as planned. Until... he began to say. Until you interfered with
And
me,
Wyler entered.
answered an all too familiar voice. A voice which turned
Only
Quinlan's
400.
blood to ice
Yeah,
and
that's not
fire. He spun, as did Ayla, and the other Jedi as well, looking back the way they came at the source of the strangely
How many of them trying to
amplified
kill himself to
sound.
escape?
Standing there, at the top of the stairs, was a tall, slim, dark shape. The Inquisitor had come back. One of his legs was raised, his foot resting on a chest of some kind, black eyes glittering in the gloom. Hello again, my dear.
Yeah, and he's definitely talking to Ayla right now. I don't even need to know who he's addressing in context. It's Ayla. Yeah. The irony being, if they did manage to kill Wyler right now, one, that would probably mean an out-of-control Daemon host, which is bad. On the other hand, it would also mean that technically they couldn't actually clarify that the orders of the Inquisitor were accurate, and everything Shadrach did in the last episode would be deemed as illegal because he killed probably St. Lazarus' forces, which might not go over well with the people who technically will survive this to say, fuck you. You don't actually have to be right. You just have to be able to account for it later.
He hissed, the sound brushing over Ayla's ear cones as though being whispered into both sides of her head. Shivers ran up and down her spine, her blue skin breaking out into goosebumps as she faced the man once more, swallowing her raging emotions and narrowing her eyes and focus. She looked to her left and to her right. Almost 50 Jedi had been freed, and
Not
of
enough.
them, she suspected at least half were in
He's
a
the
good
Daemon
enough
who gets you
condition
in
to
time.
fight. The smell of burnt steel and acrid sweat grew even more sour in the room as a distinct fear flooded into the place. But Quinlan was the first to rise strongly against it, standing up to his full height and glaring, eyes red.
Okay. Full props to Quinlan. I wasn't really sure about his character, and most of everything prior to this, he seemed way too arrogant, but this is probably the most badass moment. Like, just surviving Wyler, being tortured by the demon, and the first thing he does when confronted by the Inquisitor is to stand up and be brave. That's props to him, man. This is actually impressive.
Red and lidless. He spat blood and hate to his left and grinned a savage, violent promise at the man who stood above them. Time for round 2, you stinking inhuman nerve herder, he growled, closing
have
his
the power to do
blood-caked
it, though?
fists tightly. And this time, you don't have your pet around to protect you.
Does he?
This time I'm not going to give you any chances.
You sure about that?
The wounded Jedi roared, embracing the fire in his blood over the ice that threatened to subdue him. Suffering became fear, fear became anger, and anger became strength. His show of force gave strength to the other Jedi, who, even unarmed, now rose in a more defiant way, ready to fight for their freedom and vengeance. How do you know he doesn't have that thing nearby? Ayla whispered to him, and Voss grit his teeth through his unpleasant grin, answering her loudly. He sent the monster away. Sent it to the temple where the main battle is happening.
Oh. But did he actually do that, or just tell you he did that because he's playing a long game with you? Because he probably wants to ensure that Shadrach does his job, and probably to feed Shadrach to the monster at the end. Because why not? That is, yeah. That is a lot. I am assuming people are going to die, except they're already going... Is a virus bomb effective on a demon? I mean, I'm going to assume not, but maybe we'll find out.
It's been hours. It must be miles distant by now. Isn't that right, Inquisitor? He
Is it, though?
proclaimed, lifting a fist to
That's
point
if he
a
wasn't
red
lying.
finger at Tarweiler.
Man, that could
In
easily be the case.
response, the man on the stairs only
Smiled.
chuckled and pushed the chest over the top step with his foot, allowing it and its contents to tumble and
Did
spill
he have
down
more than
across the
one?
floor. The sight of what scattered across the ground shocked Ayla and Quinlan alike, their eyes
Lightsabers?
widening somewhat. Lightsabers. all of their lightsabers that he had collected. Voss wasted no time, whipping out his hand, the pile of sabers rustling and turning before his own weapon flew out from the collection.
Because Shadrick was trying to set up that they needed to flee. And now he's setting them up as the revenge to make them look more powerful because they managed to overcome an Inquisitor and stop. He's setting them up to look like a bigger threat than they are, even though technically what they need to detonate the bomb for is in fact actually accurate.
Soaring
or
into
he's
Quinlan's
giving
open
them
hand,
false security.
his green blade activating and humming in the air. Wait, Master, why is he... Ayla began to question, suspecting a trap, but was cut off by the Inquisitor, who began to laugh. Oh, my dear. Do you really not trust me that much?
Yes.
After all, we were nearly through. The dagger-toothed Imperial mocked from his position above them. These are no trap. They are a gift, but not to you. They are a gift from me to me. You would not last nearly long enough for my purposes if you did not have your arms to fight with. The creature which called itself human explained to them. Bantha Poodoo! Voss spat angrily.
Really?
You could barely contend with me alone the last time we fought.
He was heavily distracted.
Are you trying to kill yourself in earnest this time? Because if that is your goal, I'll gladly fulfill it. The enraged Jedi snarled, stepping into a Vapad stance, and then staggering, eyes widening as he realized something he had not noticed before about his injuries. The Inquisitor tutted and shook his head, his demeanor casual. As he did, the other Jedi began to call sabers into their own hands, taking their own if they could, but making do with any they could reach. No warp eating for you this time, Master Voss.
He found a way to cut them off from the Force? Also, warp eating? Really? I guess that kind of makes sense because from his perspective, it would kind of look like he was consuming the Force to heal himself and keep going.
And besides, this time, I will not be holding back either. You see, when you met me the first time, I was trying to remain unnoticed.
Failed.
Undercover, if you will.
Failed pretty hard.
But now the cat is quite thoroughly out of the bag.
And further proof that Wyler is very much fans' usage of the "I'm going to be as powerful as the plotline needs me to be" character. Which admittedly, I don't know how much he needed early on, but it seems like right now it's definitely I need to be the threat, and we've already shown how strong the demon is. How strong does Wyler have to be able to control the demon?
There is no point in holding myself back. You can thank your impudent interference in my plans and your worthless display of mercy for that. Mocked Tar Wyler, his final words tinged with undeniable anger. He quickly recomposed himself, however, wiping a hand over his bald head as he did. But enough talking, Jedi scum. My ship is on its way, and I'd like to wrap this up before it arrives.
And he has a private ship.
It is a rare
okay, confirmation.
thing I'm about to teach you. Well,
wait, no, his ship had the prison on it. That Anakin, he has more than one ship. Unless he's making a mistake and not aware that his ship is the one with the prison and it crashed to the surface on top of the Canonus, then he has a different ship as well. Which, I mean, he's an Inquisitor. I'd be surprised if he didn't.
Oops. So try to pay attention.
How powerful is Fang going to make?
Taking one step down the stairs as he did. Ayla rushed forward.
Fan, can we just acknowledge, I don't think your image choice right now matches the tone you're going for because, goddamn, man.
Standing before her master, the other Jedi edging in her direction as she did. I've learned everything I needed to from you already. Your tricks won't work twice. She challenged,
you sure about that?
But felt a shock go through her as the man took the second step down. Something was happening. A sensation, a ripple of power she had never felt before. The Inquisitor chuckled at her, eyes meeting hers. Good, good. Do not lose that.
And people are pointing out in the comments the crash ship was the droid ship, not the Inquisitors. I just got them mixed up. Yeah, that's on me. Yeah.
Fire, my precious little Xenos student. He mocked, and as he did, he took the third step down, and all the Jedi could feel it now, like a rock tossed into a placid pool, disturbing the surface by its entry. Ayla realized, to her horror, that this man was like some strange void in the Force. No, not an absence, not a lack.
Consuming.
But a wound. A festering, enormous wound. His power was anathema.
That is a very interesting choice of words. Anathema. Because that's specifically reserved for describing the Emperor, and he's definitely not getting that. I'm assuming this is probably just an instance of fan using a word to describe how they feel about him. And it just happens to coincide with a very specific term in 40K.
And it was only growing wider and deeper as he approached. She saw
But
now
definitely
what
not
he
Chaos
meant
Sorcerer.
when he said he had been holding back to stay unnoticed. For this swelling violation
And Voss
of the
should have
natural
definitely killed him
force
when he had
would
the
and
chance,
could
when he was
soon
still
be
floating
felt
back.
for miles across the planet. The Inquisitor drew
Wait,
his
what?
wood and could noticed. For this swelling violation of the natural force would and could soon be felt for miles across the planet.
Would other Inquisitors feel this? Because that might be a giant red flag to someone to throw off whatever's happening there. And is probably how Obi-Wan is going to survive whatever Hecate does.
The Inquisitor drew his black rapier and then casually tossed it aside, letting it clang and rattle down the stairs ahead of him as he took the fourth and then fifth step towards them. What you experienced before was but an orientation of what I am. Now the class can really begin. Doing this, it's like letting my...
Inner
It's
demons.
like letting my hair down. I get...
Really? Really, fan? I mean, yeah, you lampshaded it by having him laugh at the own pun, or his own pun, but still, I just... You just had to go there.
Get to do this so rarely. So, please, savor it with me. He continued to taunt, stepping down onto the sixth and then seventh stair. I'm going to tear you and your little lessons to pieces. Voss began to growl,
Voss dies
stepping
first.
forward, but finding a hand on his shoulder, holding him back. He spun a furious face to meet Ayla's, almost shrugging her arm off, but she gripped him all the more tightly, her face stiff but controlled. Not alone, she told him, and after a moment, he nodded rigidly,
they
slinking
don't have
back a
nearly enough
step
people
to
for this.
align himself with her. Together then, he breathed, and she nodded back. Together, she said, and the other Jedi formed up around them, legs crouching, readying themselves.
I'm honestly surprised Fan could restrain himself from saying, "We who are about to die salute you," or some kind of joke like that at this point. I mean, would it make sense to do it at all? But frankly, it's probably running from Weiler's head that this is just a bit of show. And yeah, so he's not actually letting them escape, which is good because that'd be a weird plot point. But also,
Yes. The Inquisitor hissed, his presence radiating out like the light waves of a black sun. He lifted his clawed hands, and they were suddenly wreathed in black flickering flames. Flames which came from another place, the heart of the dark side itself. Or perhaps a place that was even darker. The fires in his hands
Accurate.
screamed in the back of every skull present.
it's like he's using a bunch of things that would be warp tainted by maybe demon gods or something, or daemon gods. I don't have any idea what those parasites would possibly have to do with this.
and clawing. The ground trembled as he took the 8th step, and then the 9th. The darkness
What the hell, fan?
took the 8th step.
What the hell is that music in
and
the
then
background?
The 9th. The darkness bleeding from those black flames.
I have no idea
challenged
what this is
the
going for, but
light
okay.
of every colored saber which stood in defiance of the Inquisitor. The living kyber crystals within each radiant sword beginning to tremble at the approach. All
Consumption.
together now. Let me teach you and your order what it means to be Alpha Plus. Hello.
What? How the fuck is he allowed to live? You don't... Alpha Plus Psychers do not survive in 40k. They get sacrificed or killed on sight. That is not... That is that category of you're not as powerful as the God Emperor, but you're powerful enough that everyone in 40k will kill you because they know that is the, oh God, what the fuck? He's from a Inquisitor family. And the black ships would definitely not have any power over them. I will have to skip ahead because the song might be copyrighted.
And maybe it comes just fine to understand the thing, but you just
I have so many questions right now. I want to see if he has anything left at the end. God damn it. And that was... God damn. Fan, if you want to make an intro, saying someone is Alpha Plus is definitely one way to do it. For anyone who might be watching this and be this many episodes into a Star Wars for 40k fan fiction reaction, to say Alpha Plus is to say you could more or less be a god anywhere you want and people would probably believe you because you can make sure they do. Which is also the reason they kill those people, because they have a habit of doing that. They are the equivalent of saying, hey, it'd be a really nice choice if we decide to fuck shit up right here because warp demons are fun. But if he's from an Inquisitor family, that means there was definitely strings pulled. And they're okay with the power level because, well, sure, why not? Yeah. God damn. That's a problem. It also explains why he was so surprised that he was actually being pushed back earlier, because he thought he could probably handle it even holding himself back, but he couldn't, so it was probably more his own chagrin than anything else. And Shane Clark said Anakin is also Alpha Plus. Can be, yes, but I think one is way more heavily trained and able to use it right now. An untrained Inquisitor with that much power is a danger because of the warp in 40k, eating them and pumping out demons through that big of a conduit. In 40k, that's a bigger problem immediately, and they can be warp whammied into becoming bigger monsters faster. Star Wars wouldn't have that to the same extent, although Fan has included that there are demons still nomming on people, but it's not nearly as blatant or easy to break out of it, because they needed a warp grenade to see that and see through the warp to be infected like that. God damn. That is, yeah, that's going to be insane. Also, I'm not sure if there's going to be a stream next week, not because I don't want to, but because I currently have a 3900K CPU in my computer, and there's been a lot of reporting that those are degrading, as in getting worse and worse and worse until they stop working altogether. And while I've had it for about a year, it crashed once after 6 months, couple of times a few months after that, and then it has just crashed again yesterday, and I had to restart everything. It's still working, but there's been enough issues getting closer together in repetition that I went out and I have a new CPU I can put in right now. I need to change out significant proportions of my board to go from Intel to AMD. I bought a board that was actually on sale for a decent price, which was still way too expensive, but I think a decent price is less than $100, so it wasn't that. But yeah, I'm going to be working in the guts of my PC, and I may or may not need to reset everything. So assuming I'm just going to blue screen everything and delete everything and then re-upload everything. So yeah, if there is not a video next week, it's because I'm still trying to figure out why the hell it isn't posting. So that's going to be a thing. If I can get anyone wishing me luck on not destroying my own computer in the process, thanks. I'm only doing this because if my PC is already entering the death spiral with this CPU, it's better to change it out now than wait for it to get worse when I'm streaming midway. If I can do it now when I have time, it's fine. If I can't, that's just annoying. So yeah, PC problems. Love it. I would stream this, except my streaming PC is the one, well, also the only PC I have is the one I would be doing it through, which I can't. Yeah. Fun. Tech issues. Also, I was going to make a video about building the PC in the first place. Then I realized everything was out of focus, so I didn't do that. Yeah. All the same. Thanks for watching, everyone, and hope to see you next week, because that means I didn't fuck up making the new PC components. It's just changing out the CPU and the motherboard and putting everything back in and remembering where all the components plug into. Out of all of it, that's the part I'm not looking forward to. Oh god, I'm going to have to cable manage again. Ugh. I hate cable management. Yeah. I'll see you guys later. Adios.